Thank you for taking the time to look at this presentation on projects of Sage 300. So today we are going to go through and introduce the product, then do a very quick demonstration followed by some questions. So Projects for Sage 300 has a complete set of features for managing all different types of projects. The product allows you to do quoting and budgeting, project planning, time and expense capture, work in progress management, and this involves generating accruals in the general ledger as required as well, based on activity and work in progress in the projects. The system can optionally reimburse expenses back to staff and employees who have incurred out-of-pocket expenses. It allows you to turn work in progress into a number of outputs. It could generate a bill from work in progress to a customer. It could create inventory, or it could generate a fixed asset from the work in progress. Around these features, the product comes with built-in analytics, integration, and customization features. Projects has been designed to work with the front office as well as the back office. The system in this module is not a finance-only module. It has been designed to be used by the project managers, the employees of the business to manage all the requirements of a project. And because of that, we have two distinct components. The core of the product is a Sage 300 module written in the SDK, just like the general ledger or the accounts payable. And this component runs inside of Sage 300 and provides functions for the finance and administration team. There are also a number of external components that run outside of Sage 300. These components are intended to be deployed to users who are not your normal Sage 300 user, and they push out functionality that these users require. For example, the project manager allows your project managers and your employees to create projects, to review and approve timesheets, to pull reports, and a wide variety of other functionality. All these components can be deployed on workstations that don't have Sage 300 installed. And that's the presentation. So what we're going to do now is we're actually going to jump into Sage 300 and we're going to have a look at the projects module. As you can see, when you're in the standard Sage 300 environment, projects is just another menu option. As we expand it out, we can see we've got a very, very simple and not complicated or cluttered number of icons. But where the magic starts with projects is in the project manager. The project manager is the first example of one of the external modules. But as you can see, as we log in to the project manager from Sage 300, the transfer through security is seamless. So here we've started up the project manager directly from within Sage 300, and because we were logged in as the administrator in Sage 300, we are logged into the project manager as administrator as well. If I close the project manager and minimize Sage 300, you can see we also have an icon on the desktop for projects, and we can run the exact same application outside of Sage 300 and log in, and the experience is exactly the same. So this is an example of one of the external components that can be deployed on any workstation. When the user first logs in, they're presented with a number of options around what we can display here. So what we're looking at the moment is a very minimalist sort of view of the functionality that's available in projects. When we've logged in, we have logged in to a list of projects that are relevant to the user. And because we're logged in as the administrator, we can see every project in the entire system. Regardless of whether you're an administrator, a project manager, or just a timesheet user, the functionality of the application is the same. The system is modern in terms of it operates and behaves the way that you would expect a grid to in a modern application. So you can resize, resort, and group by any of the information that's available in the grid. And you can also right-click and add additional information into each of these grids. All the information that's presented in the grid can also be exported out to Excel just at the click of a button. The purpose of demonstrating this is throughout the system you're going to see a number of grids that present information, and they all behave in the same way. Coming back to this core grid, what we can see here is the core project ID, description, the project manager, and the customer. But we can also see a lot of other information such as the currency, the hours, and actuals against a project. If we drill into a project, we can see how the structure of the project is put together. First and foremost, we have this segments concept. Projects works on the concept of a segment to make up the project. Each level we see here is a segment in the project. And the best way of thinking of it is it's similar to a task in MS Project. Within projects, you can create as many levels as you require to fully break down the project. And against each of these levels, you can capture key pieces of information, such as the segment budget, additional options around that segment, such as who the customer is and who the project manager is for that particular segment. You can also look at transactions associated with that segment and a lot of other stuff as well, which we'll talk about later. But the core concept here is we've created a project, and in that project we can go away and build up the segments to represent the structure that we require. Creating a new project is very simple. We can start and create a new project from scratch just by clicking the add function and say this is a new project and choose the customer from accounts receivable. We can then choose a project template which can be applied by default, or we could choose another project template and that will apply the segment structure that is appropriate to that particular project segment. But once we have that, we're not limited to that segment structure. So we can go through and we can delete the components of the template that we don't want, just like that. And we can update any of the segment values as we see fit and indent them and change the structure completely. So there's a lot of flexibility in a way that you can actually create a project. Another way of creating a project in a more common way is to simply copy it from an existing project. And if we update that, and that will copy the project. As we can see here. So this is now a brand new project. So setting up a project or standing up a project is a simple process. Each of these projects can be, once set up, used as the basis of a quote. So if we've gone in and we have gone through, set up a project, defined the budget, we can turn on options and make the actual project a quote. So in this particular case, what we're looking at is a system that has a lot of the features switched off. So what we're going to do here is switch on a number of components that allow us to edit more detail around this project. And to do that, I'm going to go into the administration area and configuration. And the configuration shows a number of settings that are available in the system that we can turn on or off depending on what the environment is. So what we were just looking at was very much geared up for a sort of job costing environment. There's no real time billing. But now we're going to switch on some of the features that maybe a time billing environment would like, such as dashboards, billing, time review, showing transactions based on value, and also giving additional options. So by switching on these, and maybe we also want a document library as well. So if we switch that on, now when we close out of the project manager and we log back in, we're presented with a lot more than what we were seeing before. So this is more of a configuration that you would see in a time billing environment. At the front we have a dashboard which is user definable and customizable just via this design feature here. We also have projects, which was our grid that we were looking at before, and now we have time review, billing, and additional reports. So again, if we now go back into our other project that we were looking at before, we have a dashboard for the project, we have our segment structure, and now we can see we have hours, value, and costs all displayed in the financial summary. And one of the things we can do now is switch on options and change this project to a quote. And so by changing this status to a quote, we can now print off directly out of the system a quote based on the budget that we established in the segment structure. So once your project is established, the next step is to start posting transactions against it. So if we were to minimize the project manager, the first type of transaction that we would post against the project is timesheets. And projects for Sage 300 has a number of timesheeting options. The first of those is the browser-based timesheet. So logging into the browser-based timesheet, we are logged in as the administrator, and we can see on the top here a calendar that describes the week that we're capturing the timesheet data for, and we can navigate the weeks just by clicking through each of those entries, and we can see historic timesheets. We also have an area here to print off timesheets, and we can also create favorites or shortcuts for capturing the timesheet. But the process for actually keying in your timesheet is very simple. You simply type in what you're looking for. So if we're looking for a customer Ronald Black, by typing in Ronald, it will go away and it will give us a list of all the projects associated with Ronald Black. If we're looking for a particular project, we can type in that project description and it will filter that list. Selecting the project will then move us to the segment field, and from here, this is where we can select the segment that we want to code our time to. Once we've selected the segment, we can then go through and enter the number of hours for each of the days of the week that we have done work on that particular segment. So we may have done 2 hours on Tuesday and maybe 1 hour on Thursday. We then can write a comment that will be automatically applied to the time on Thursday and Tuesday, and then we can click Save. This now is a timesheet entry. If we want to duplicate that, we can click on the tick and go Copy, and it will create another entry, and then maybe we want to key in some additional comments. We can also do other things such as click on the cell and enter in a comment for that specific timesheet day. We can also, once we have that pop-up appearing, we can upload documents and link those documents through to the project as well. So by doing that, this is going to actually upload this document and link it to this project and this segment and associate it with this timesheet. So this is great for doing things like uploading any sort of Word document or PDF that you want to attach to the project. And in the same way we did that, we can come in here and create another timesheet entry for VST Drive, except this is not a timesheet, this is an expense. And what we've got is a number of different types of expenses that we can claim. So in this particular case, I'm going to claim airfares, and there is no fixed price on airfares, so I can type in the price for the airfares and then the days that I want to apply it. So in this particular case, I'm claiming 2 days of airfares at $1,000 a day. And from here, we also have our uploadability, and this is where we can key in information such as a receipt. Of course, we have to enter comments as well. And so that's the process for capturing your timesheet and also for capturing your expenses. Once the user has completed the timesheet capture and the expense capture component, they can then submit their timesheet, and that then makes it available for approving to other users, to administrator. So the second timesheet option that the product has is a Outlook-based timesheet. So the Outlook-based timesheet allows the users to capture their time without leaving Microsoft Outlook. And the concept is we can create an appointment, and that appointment is for a specific amount of time, the duration being 6 hours in this case. And when we open up that appointment, Projects has created a panel on the right-hand side, and into that panel, we can also code time to our VST Drive project, so ARC fees in this particular case. And again, we have the same information as what we were capturing in the web timesheet. We have our comments area, we have our internal comments, we have reference information, We can mark the timesheet non-chargeable. We can also add expenses in here as well. So again, maybe we're going to claim some more airfares, and maybe I'll claim another $100 for airfares there. So that is now a timesheet entry. And then by clicking save, we've now created a project's timesheet appointment. And we can copy this appointment as often as we want. We can also invite other users to this appointment, and if they are project's Outlook timesheet user, it'll code their timesheet as well. The system also supports reoccurring appointments. So you can set this up to be a reoccurring appointment, and that will create a reoccurring timesheet. At the appropriate time, you can then complete the timesheet, and this will then synchronize it with the server. So the Outlook timesheet by default runs offline. You don't need to be connected to the server to be able to do that timesheet. But we can see here using this very simple reporting tool that this is the overview of the timesheet for that period, and we just click the tick and it will submit it up to the server. The third option for capturing timesheets is an Excel-based timesheet. So the projects system has a Excel-based timesheet that comes bundled with it, and this is for users that need to really be completely offline and they just want to capture timesheets in a very, very simple way. And this information can be uploaded directly into the projects module via the import button. We also are just about to release a mobile time capture tool as well. So this is working with Android and also iPhone. And the mobile timesheet allows you to, again, capture the exact same experience except directly from your phone. The mobile timesheet also integrates into your call log. And so when you receive a phone call, if it recognizes the number, it will automatically start a timesheet. And also you can do geotagging. So if you geotag your customer site, for example, as your phone moves into that location, it will automatically start recording time. So we are just going through the final process with the Apple Store to have this application deployed, and we expect it to be available by the end of the year. So regardless of what time capture tool you use, all the information flows into and is visible in the web timesheet and also in the project manager application. So here in the time review area, any time that has been captured will appear here as available to be approved. So we've just created timesheet entries for this timesheet period. So here are all the entries that we just created by the web timesheet, so by using the administrator login. And you can see we have a number of different types of entries. We have expense entries as well as timesheet entries. And so the way that we're going to approve this timesheet is simply based on the way that we group it. So if I wanted to approve the timesheet by the employee, I would just group by employee, and then I can review the employee's timesheets. If I wanted to do it by period, I can just drag the period in front, and then I can approve by the timesheet period. But as you can see, once we have the expenses, the idea is that you can just right-click to approve it, or you can select multiple entries to approve it, or you can click on one of the grouping levels and approve, say in this case, an entire timesheet period in one hit. Timesheet approvals is an optional thing. You don't have to go through that approval process if you don't want. The system can just automatically approve completed timesheets. It's an option. You can also edit any piece of information about the timesheet or the expense before it is actually committed to the system. And the system also allows you to view any documents that were uploaded and associated with that particular timesheet entry, such as the receipts or PDF documents. So once the timesheets have been approved, they go through a posting process, which is managed by the administrator in Sage 300. So in every organisation that has timesheets, there's normally someone who will actually manage and ensure all those timesheets are done and chase the people who haven't done them. So we have this timesheet management screen, which allows you to see the users who haven't done their timesheet and allows you to chase them up very quickly. So in this particular case, we can see that Freddie hasn't done his timesheet and Paul hasn't done his timesheet, and we can very quickly just go email reminder, and it will generate an email to Freddie and Paul asking them to do their timesheet quickly. So it doesn't look very impressive when there's only 10 users there, but if there's 300 users, that's a very useful function. Once the timesheet posting has been completed, work in progress accruals will be generated automatically in the general ledger, and any expenses that were posted will be pushed through to the accounts payable module. So if we were to go into the accounts payable module to look at one of these expenses, we would open up the normal invoice batch list screen. And we can see here that there are a number of expense claim batches that have come through directly from the projects module to accounts payable. And if we were to open up one of those expense claim batches, we will see all the information that was captured via the user at the time of timesheet capture. So here we see Marilyn has an expense claim for mileage, and that's come through at $343. And we can see that while this is the standard AP invoice entry screen, it has been modified slightly. We can see down the bottom there is some coding bars to associate that expense with a project and a segment. So in the same way we coded a timesheet entry to a project and to a segment, we can code any transaction line in this AP invoice also to a project and a segment. So when the expenses were created via projects, the system did all that coding for us. But equally, if we were just entering a normal AP batch, we can also code any one of those lines directly through to the project and segment combination. So in this particular case, I'm going to code $100, and then maybe I'm going to code another entry for $500, and I'm going to code that through to maybe our Vesti drive as well. So we'll say Vesti drive, and the segment that I want to code it to is again our ARC fees. And in this particular case, I want to associate it with Dale Smith and say that the quantity was 2. And you can see as soon as we coded it to that project, the system has automatically recoded that line to work in progress. So we can then create another line, and maybe that's 250, and the process can just continue. So I can go through, code a new line again, maybe 300. I can press the F4 key and very quickly jump to the project allocation, and maybe we'll code this to a different project. And then when I'm finished, I can F4 back to the grid and continue coding. So as you can see in projects, the coding of a AP invoice entry line to a project is a very, very simple process. And as we scroll through, we can see each individual line that is coded to the project. Now, the nice thing about the way we do our integration into the AP invoice entry screen is we also do that exact same integration with a number of other screens in project in Sage. So, for example, under PRJ transactions, you can see all the modules and screens that we integrate into. So if we go into accounts payable, you can see that we not only integrate into the AP invoice batch list, but we also integrate into the payment entry batch list. This means you can create a miscellaneous payment in accounts payable and code that cost directly through to the project. Likewise, in accounts receivable, we integrate into the the AR invoice entry screen, and this allows you to create revenue in accounts receivable, invoice your customers in advance, and post that revenue directly through to a project in the exact same way we did it with accounts payable. We also integrate into reoccurring entries, so you can create reoccurring charges in accounts receivable, and every month that reoccurring invoice is generated, it is also coded automatically to a Sage project, and this then allows that reoccurring revenue to drop into a project. So this is a great feature for managing any sort of service level agreement that you've got, or any sort of agreement that involves reoccurring billing. We also integrate into AR receipt entry. So any receipts can be received as revenue against a project. And likewise, we allow you to do journal entries against a project. We allow you to ship inventory to a project. We can capture the fact that an order is associated with a project. And we have comprehensive purchase order integration so that all your commitments can be logged against a project at the time of doing data entry. But regardless of what screen you're using, the process is exactly the same. The system allows you to code any one specific line or more specific lines directly through to a project. It's not forcing you to specify that the whole document is a project-related document. It's simply a line-by-line basis. So once the transactions have been posted from the Sage module, they seamlessly integrate through to the projects module. And we can see, if we go back to our segments overview, a financial summary that's breaking down the labour that's coming in from timesheets, the expenses that are coming in from the accounts payable module, and also the staff expenses that have been claimed on timesheets. And we can see materials. So these are stock that's been issued to the job from the inventory control module. In addition to that, we can also see any purchase orders that are outstanding on the job, which gives us our total expenses and costs against the job. Any revenue we've invoiced in advance, we will see here, and giving us a net position. So at any particular point in time, you can see the profit and loss of the job at a glance, and you can also see at any particular point in time how much is not being billed to the customer. As we scroll through the segments, that financial summary is updated to reflect the selection that you have in your segments area. So by clicking on-site, it's now giving us a financial overview of the entire branch of on-site. And as I scroll through and drill into that branch even further, we can see that those numbers change depending on the level that we are at. We can also click this little side button here and expand out the view and bring in the information so that we can see the entire project distribution of costs as a whole. The transactions that have been captured that make up these numbers are available to be viewed at any time. So we can double click on the entry and drill down to see the numbers that actually make up those entries. And likewise, if we're looking at the labour, we can double click on the labour and break down that as well. There's also another transaction screen here that if we click refresh, we can see all the accounts payable entries that have come into the job. We can see all the timesheet entries and any revenue that was billed in advance or been billed based on the timesheets. Any invoices that we have raised, we can click print invoice and see a copy of that invoice even if we're not in Sage or have Sage on the workstation. And we can also, at any particular point in time, click on the history to see the history of what actually happened to any particular timesheet entry, plus any changes that were made to that transaction. So these changes are managed just by coming in, clicking on transaction, clicking the change button if you have sufficient rights, and then from here we can change any piece of information associated with the transaction, such as the cost price. So I can change this cost to $14,000. Click change, and that will then literally change it. And from here, if we look at the history, we can see that the change log was done. And if there are any general ledger implications to that change, it will automatically have done a journal in the background. Any documents that we also uploaded at the time of doing timesheet capture will be appearing in this list here. So from here, we can see the receipt that we uploaded, plus any other documents that were pushed in, such as this PowerPoint presentation. The document library stores this information in the database so that you are never, the documents themselves get backed up with your Sage 300 database, and they can't be deleted off a file system. The system has finally a number of options for taking work in progress and generating output documents. We have about 5 different methods for generating bills to customers. As mentioned previously, you can go straight into the accounts receivable module and create just any old AR invoice and post that straight through to the project as revenue in advance. The system can optionally defer that revenue and recognise it as it's used over time, or it can recognise it immediately. We also have the ability to generate invoices based on a payment schedule. So by clicking on invoice in the project, we can come in and define a payment schedule, and the payment schedule can generate an invoice in the accounts receivable module. So this is a milestone invoice, which I can just type in, maybe for $1,000. And when you hit that milestone, to actually raise the bill in the Sage system is just a matter of clicking Raise Invoice, and you must log into Sage. And once you've logged in, it's now generated that invoice in the Accounts Receivable module, batch 115, entry 1. So that's an example of just generating a very, very quick and easy milestone-based bill. You can also come in here and invoice work in progress on the job, or you can actually pick up budgets on the job as well, and you invoice the budget that has been established for the job. In addition to these methods of raising invoices, the system also has a more of a portfolio billing option. So here we can click on billing, and this will actually open up the billing manager. And the billing manager is more of a worksheet sort of approach to invoicing. So here we can see all the work in progress associated with my portfolio of WIP, and I can filter it to the project manager or the overall project director who owns the projects. And in here, the idea is very simply, we're going to convert this work in progress into a bill, or we're going to write it off. So in this particular case, we have Acme Plumbing, project is resolved, and there's a number of timesheet entries that are in here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to invoice the timesheet entries, and we'll hold the AP to another month. So I've right-clicked on those timesheet entries and I've created them. I'm going to bill to a specific amount. So I'm going to say I would like to actually bill 2,500. And the system has then gone away and it will prorate the additional 150 right on across each of the timesheet entries. From here, I can print a draft invoice to see what it looks like. And here is the draft. And if I'm unhappy with the way it's printing off all the individual details, I can really quickly right click here, go summary invoice, and then just put in some narrations and just say, this is an invoice, and the invoice that we're going to raise is for 2,500. And once we've raised that invoice, we can click save. Now if we print the draft, we can see that it's no longer printing out the detail, it's just doing a summary bill. So there's lots of variations on summary and detail bills that we can do out of the box. But the idea is that once you've constructed your billing groups, you would mark it complete. And this then allows your project director or your administrator to approve the bills. Following on from that, the director or the administrator would mark the bills ready to invoice. And once all the bills are ready to invoice, the system then can generate all those bills directly in the accounts receivable module very quickly. So backing up all of this information is a series of reporting capability that we bundle with the system. So as we log into projects, as you noted before, you can see a dashboard that appears, and the dashboard is completely user definable, and it's defined by user. So here we can click on the design of the dashboard and we could add a new widget on the fly. And the widget that we may want to add can be one of three types. It can be a graph, it can be a grid, or it can be a box. And the idea behind it is there is a core SQL query that will generate a result, and then we map that result to the particular type of thing that we're displaying. So in this particular case, we're displaying a chart, and we've got a whole bunch of different types of charts that we can display. And likewise, if we're saying a grid, we can just choose how that information is presented, or likewise we can just turn an SQL query into a box that displays key pieces of information. When we save the dashboard, we can choose to save it for globally for everyone in the company, or for a specific team of people or employee or a project. So it gives you a lot of flexibility to tailor the dashboards for individual users. In addition to dashboards, projects comes bundled with a number of reports that allows you to print off key pieces of information, such as a project status report. So this is an example of a report that is telling you for a particular project, in this case, what your base budget is, unapproved changes, approved changes, what the amended budget is, your current actual, your estimate to complete, your estimate at completion, and progress. So this is an example of one of the reports that the system comes bundled with. But as you can see, there's a number of reports that discuss productivity, that discuss work in progress, and these reports are all available to be changed and modified as required as well. So in addition to the Crystal reports, we make use of Excel pivot tables quite a lot in the system. And Excel pivot tables is just one example of how some of the core views or queries that we have built into the system can be used. So in this case, we have on the side here a view of the project's data that is presented in a very friendly way. So with nice field names, and you can see there's a lot of information associated with each individual transaction. Now, this same information that we're presenting here as a pivot table in Excel can also be used in Microsoft Power BI or ClickView or whatever your business intelligence reporting tool of choice is. The key thing is that we have prepared an optimized query that pulls all the information together that allows you then to slice and dice it. But in this particular case, you can see we have an example of using that information to prepare a dashboard in Excel that is live. Likewise, we have specific reports that allow you to look at the information that's in the project with filters that allow you to really quickly just jump between projects and teams maybe that you're interested in. All this information can be drilled into. So if I double click on one of these items, it drills down to the actual timesheet entry that caused that amount. And then essentially the entire sort of projects database or transaction data set is available there. So these pivot tables or the reports that you can generate in Power BI are extremely powerful to allow you to very, very quickly slice and dice the data and just get a different image. So here we have an employee breakdown. So what customers has each employee been working on? And likewise, very quickly, if I drag the customer in front of that, now I have a customer breakdown. So for this customer, what employees have worked on it? So 2 reports just by changing these rows. Pivot tables are very powerful. So that's a very, very quick overview of projects. There's quite a bit more in the system that we could show you. The system has a lot of capability around customization, and you have the ability to very, very quickly set up optional fields or custom fields in the system. So for example, in the details tab here under a project, we have a number of custom fields that have been created to capture additional information around the project. Likewise, under segments, we can come into segments and we can click on tags, and we have a whole bunch of other additional fields or custom fields that have been created to store information against the project. So these fields can be customized by the end user using the UI designer in projects. So we can come in here and choose a segment or an entity, and from here we can just very, very quickly add as many fields as we need to capture the information that you need from a reporting perspective or an operational perspective. There's also customization options around modifying the core system behavior. And we also have an extensibility layer that allows you to build a .NET add-in to the projects module itself. And an example of one of those add-ins is this functions DLL. Functions allows you to create inventory or to create fixed assets using norming fixed assets. So from here we can turn work in progress into inventory or turn it into an asset. So it's a very, very powerful piece of functionality. And the cool thing about it is this is actually just an add-in to the core project system. It's provided by a single DLL, and anyone with .NET development capability can build their own. So that concludes the very, very quick overview of projects.